The location we're at 100 South in Main Street here in Bountiful, to me is a very sacred location. This is where I cut my teeth in life and learned many lessons. This is a 5-year-old that my dad, one early Thursday morning, yanked me out of bed and told me to come take the papers off the press. I was low to the ground, had stubby hands, and I could grab a few bunches of papers. They came off slowly on that little conveyor belt, walk them to my grandfather, who had put a label on them, and then they were taken to the post office to be delivered in the mail. And every week since then, for the next probably 25 years, I worked at the Clipper alongside my father and grandfather and other siblings. And rich times, wonderful memories. Not all of them pleasant. Oftentimes working till 3 in the morning and then having to get up a couple hours later to go to school. Those were kind of hard during those years, but wonderful memories. The Clipper became something of a central gathering place for the South Davis community. It wasn't just a newspaper, it was a place where it brought the people together. They learned about each other, became friends, understood each other, and I think it had a lot to do with the quality of life that we enjoy in Bountiful today, where we became friends and learned to care for each other. It began in 1892. My great-grandfather at the time, I don't think he was employed, but evidently had some money from his father, a Swiss immigrant who owned vast amounts of land around here and grew apples. And Lamoni Call was looking for someone who could write and write correctly. Lamoni was a wonderful and an inventive, progressive businessman in Bountiful, an entrepreneur. He had a nice shop of bicycle repairs and jewelry and things. And he wanted to promote his business and started a little publication, a little advertiser. He got a small press somehow and was able to begin a business. But he got a lot of criticism for the misspellings, and so he needed someone who maybe had a little education. That was my great-grandfather. He had been to the Desert Academy, now the University of Utah, and he had a little bit of education, so they formed a partnership, began to work together, do various things, and in a little shop not too far from here on the next block, he worked in the basement with the press and things. Over the next 6 years, they decided to kind of divide the business. My great-grandfather took the news side of it, and Lamoni kept the advertising side of it, which turned into car printing. So at that point, they kind of went their ways, and my great-grandfather took over things, and he was an avid bike rider. He would ride throughout the county looking for the news and talking to people, stopping and asking questions. And people came into the shop, he was always asking what was going on in their lives, and that's how he gathered the news. The story that he told my father, which I thought was always fascinating, was that one day while riding his bicycle to Farmington, the county seat, he heard a loud pop behind him. He thought he was being shot at for some reason. He dove behind a pile of rocks, nervous and quite concerned. And he kept peering over the rocks. About an hour later, when no one appeared, he got back on his bike and he rode as hard as he could to Bountiful, grabbed the constable and said, "So I've been shot at." The constable looked at his back tire and said, "No, you've had a blowout of your back tire." So that's where I stem from. But still wonderful people. The linotype was a massive part. What we have right here, which was an original part of the Clipper, was an important part of the production of a newspaper in that day. It's a machine that should not work. It is too complicated, parts moving in all directions. But it was still the mainstay of what newspapers were for many, many years. My grandfather spent time in San Francisco as a 17-year-old learning how to operate the linotype and came back in for the next good 50 years was a linotype operator. He was able to produce about 9 lines of type a minute, which was a pretty good amount in the day. But then came computers, and my father was progressive and talked my grandfather into buying computers, and pretty soon the computers were all taking over his work. The day he turned off the light and walked to his office, it was a bit of a sad day. He never sat down and lined it up again. Everything was done electronically. The Clipper, as I say, was quite progressive in these things. At times, it was the only weekly newspaper west of the Mississippi that had such computers. In some cases, computers that even the dailies did not have. With that went with the presses. The Clipper was very progressive with presses and had a variety of presses, including one large one that never worked. It was finally disassembled and sold, and a new press was bought, changing the whole printing production, an offset press from heat set, from hot lead to offset. And that's the press that I ran as a pressman. My brother and my cousin and others. And that became the workhorse. And so many hours spent preparing the news for the community. The secret sauce, I think, for all of this, though, was that my father and my grandmother had a sensitivity to people that made them feel good. My father took pictures of everything. Boys raking leaves as a service project, honor roll students, school plays, classroom activities. If it moved, it was a picture, it was worthy, and it brought the community together. An aspect of journalism that I believe is lost today. But for me, I appreciate the opportunity to share my experience with it. That clipper played the role of documenting life, showing the good things that were done in life, and the people who did them, recording history and showing us our background and what we're made of and who we're from. I wanted to be a part of the Staley clan.